March 25th, 1942. 75 years ago this weekend was a day that Greek Orthodox Christians born and living in America had dreamed of for many years, dreams that had finally come to fruition. One of their own, George Papadeas, born to Greek immigrants in Altoona, Pennsylvania, a member of the first class of the newly formed Holy Cross Theological Seminary in Pomfret, Connecticut, was ordained to the holy priesthood in our own St. George Cathedral. At that time, our community was still relatively young. In our possession for only 2 years, St. George Memorial Church, as it was called then, was the largest church building and certainly one of the most beautiful and prominent communities in the country. It was here that Archbishop Athenagoras chose to ordain Father George, knowing that, from this moment, our church would be primarily led by Americans who would serve fellow Americans throughout the country. Father George Papadeas was born in 1918 and in 1937 enrolled in the charter class of the newly formed Holy Cross. Graduating as valedictorian in 1942, he then became the very first American-born clergyman to be ordained into the Greek Orthodox Church in the United States. Throughout his career as a priest, Father Papadeas was instrumental to the growth of the Greek Church in America. He broke new ground, initiating many firsts, and he created many programs that are still in use throughout the parishes across the country. In the late 50s, Father George generated the keyboard layout for Greek language typewriters to make it easier for American typists. He later gave it to the Smith Corona Typewriter Company for use in the construction of typewriters for the Greek-speaking community worldwide. In 1960, at the St. Paul's Cathedral on Long Island, which he had founded only a few years earlier, he brought a weeping icon of the Virgin Mary that began to tear in the middle of the night at the house of one of his parishioners. Hundreds of thousands from all faiths witnessed that manifestation, and in 1990 was named by New York Newsday as one of the most significant events of the last 50 years.
Crowds flocked to the home of Mr. and Mrs. Peter Koulis in Oceanside, Long Island, to see a Madonna that seems to weep tears. Mrs. Koulis's great-aunt recently reported a similar case. The Reverend George Papadeas describes what he has seen.
I personally was summoned to the Koulis' home, where I was one of the first witnesses to see the tears falling profusely from both eyes of the Madonna. I witnessed these tears all through Tuesday up to 3 o'clock in the morning when I left the home. His Eminence, the Archbishop, came to the house. He witnessed the tears himself. We took the icon apart. He looked in the back. It was bone dry, and he himself saw the wet tears.
Later, the picture is carried to St. Paul's Greek Orthodox Church in Hempstead, New York. Like the first weeping Madonna, which is already in the church, it is displayed for veneration.
Then Vice President Nixon summoned him to the White House to hear the first-hand account of what had transpired. And in 1990, on the 40th anniversary of the manifestation, Father George wrote his accounts in a book aptly titled, "Why Did She Cry?" In 1963, Father George was the first to translate the Orthodox Holy Week Easter services from Greek into English, and subsequently published the book Holy Week and Easter that has been used in communities worldwide, including our own. The retired clergy of America stated in their recent newsletter, "This book saved Holy Week for our Orthodox churches in America." Father George went on to become the dean of the Archdiocesan Cathedral in New York City, and then continued his service in Greece and finally in Florida, and was given the singular title of head proto-presbyter by the Archbishop of North and South America, Archbishop Iakovos. Father George's impact on the Greek Orthodox Church and its followers was far-reaching. He never retired, starting a new Greek Orthodox community in Ocala, Florida at age 86, which he drove to by himself until just a few months before he passed away in 2011. Father George Papadeas was 93. Among many, many accomplishments, far too many to name here, he was the secretary of the Board of Trustees of the Hellenic College and of St. Basil Academy in New York for many years. He was the vice president and founding member of St. Michael's Greek Orthodox Home for the Aged in Yonkers, New York. He was the co-founder of the Cathedral Parochial School in New York City in 1949. He was also the founder and first president of the Holy Cross Alumni Association. While serving at St. Paul's in New York, the Sunday school had swelled to 1,200 students with a staff of 125 teachers. With the cooperation of teachers at the school, Father George published a complete series of Sunday school books from kindergarten through the 12th grade. Truly, Father George was a man of God, whose influence over the entire church in America will not soon be forgotten. May God rest his soul, and may his memory be eternal.